Hi, this is John Wobenhorst, and welcome to this description today. I'm going to be talking about Music of India for the Western Flutist. It's a new course I put together that really helps Western flutists explore the beautiful music of North India. But before I talk, I thought I'd just play a little bit so you can get the feeling of what I'm talking about. I'm going to play some of Rag Yaman in Rupak Tal, which is a cycle of 7 beats, and Rag Yaman, just a few minutes just to give you a brief idea of what I'll be talking about. So here we go. Rupak Tal of 7 beats. Tin, tin, na, di, na, di, na. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that was a brief example of Indian music on the Western flute, and I thought I'd just give you a little history of how I even got into this. I mean, I grew up playing the Western flute. I was playing the Bach flute sonatas. I was doing some different jazz, even some Jethro Tull rock stuff. And but also along the way, I started to hear different parts of Indian music. Maybe the first place was the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I think that came out in '67 or '68. Anyway, there was that one song, Within Without You, by George Harrison. We were talking about the space. Well, that piece, if you notice, there's no Ringo, there's no Paul, there's no John. It's basically just George Harrison with some Indian musicians that he met through probably association with Ravi Shankar. And so that was one of the first doses of Indian music that I got. And then my high school library had one Indian music record, Ravi Shankar, at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967. And this was a revolutionary recording for me because I listened to this record almost every day in my library. And I was drawn to the music, except I couldn't figure out how could anybody play like that. How could they play on and on, endless stream of ideas? He was obviously improvising, but there's obviously some kind of deeper structure going on. Anyway, I was really taken by that recording, and that really got me listening. I listened more and more to a lot of different Indian music. I also, of course, had noticed that some of my favorite musicians were getting influence from Indian music. There was John Coltrane, who had had communications with Ravi Shankar, and he was so impressed that he named his son Ravi Coltrane, who is still playing to this day. One of my favorite projects involving some Indian musicians was John McLaughlin's Shakti Group, where he was playing with some outstanding Indian musicians, and he himself was taking a lot of time to learn the Indian music system while at the same time bringing all kinds of Western jazz influences. There's the group Oregon, especially Colin Walcott, who had learned both sitar and tabla and integrated some of those sounds into their group. And really, I could go on. Julian Bream had some interactions with Ali Akbar Khan. Philip Glass had also spent some time with Ravi Shankar. Alan Havananes, a great American composer, had gone on, I believe, in the 50s on a Fulbright scholarship to India. So if you start to look around, you can see many, many great musicians have taken inspiration from this music. So continuing on in my own life, I got to the point where I was so taken by this music, I put all my belongings in storage and I went to India. And through a wonderful series of events, I got to meet Hari Prasad Chaurasia, and he agreed to teach me. So I was really overjoyed. So at this point, I had started playing the bansuri. Bansuri is a beautiful instrument. It's really just a simple piece of bamboo with some holes in it, but because of its structure, you can bend the notes a lot more than the Western flute. So I stayed in India for several years, studying with Hari Prasad, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And at the end of that 2 years' time, at his suggestion, I enrolled in the Rotterdam Conservatorium in Holland, where he was teaching. I enrolled in the Rotterdam Conservatorium and I studied with him for an additional 12 years there. So this was just an incredible experience to be immersed in music with such a great master. And I'm very grateful that the whole experience happened. So anyway, at that point, I was back in the United States, and I was doing a lot of teaching, and I was teaching a lot of people the bansuri, and that was great. But I also noticed that a certain amount of people wanted to learn Indian music concepts on the Western flute. They'd already put 10, 20, 30 years of experience and practice in the Western, and while the bansuri is a wonderful instrument, it's actually a very difficult instrument, because to get the notes, you've got to partially cover some of these holes. You've got to partially cover the holes while you're moving really fast. So to get the intonation correct takes a lot of time and practice and patience. It's like learning a new instrument. So for a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They would rather learn on their Western flute. And so because of that, I have created this course, Music of India for the Western Flutist, where I've adapted some of the things I've learned from Hari Prasad and others, and adapt it for the Western flute. Now, the Western flute has some limitations in terms of expressing some of the ornaments, especially the glidings, but you can make fantastic, beautiful music with the Western flute with the inspiration of Indian music. And so I've made this course. So I really hope you'll join me on this course if you want to go deeper into this wonderful music. To me, this music in India is like a magic carpet ride. And somehow this music embodies the spiritual essence of this great sacred culture. So it's just a wonderful thing to experience, number one. And secondly, just increasing your musicality, the incredible dexterity you can gain from playing the different rhythms, and the knowledge of improvising in this modal tradition. Again, we're talking about the ragas, the melodic forms, and the talas, the different rhythmic cycles. They don't have harmony in the same way that much of our Western music does. However, it's a beautiful, rich tradition, and I just want to express my willingness to help you go deeper into this music and just have the wonderful time that I've had with it. So before I go any further, let me just take some time and go through the course that I've set up.